all of your information seamlessly move between all of your devices.
What do you know that we don't know? What's coming?
Do you really want an Atom-powered mobile device?
And then from a technology point of view, they charge a premium.
Mostly, I'm a candy man.
Look me up, I'll hook you up.
Hello, I'm Cortana. Welcome to the SurfaceSmiths podcast, the show about the Microsoft Surface and related technologies. That could include Windows, Windows Phone, OneNote, Xbox, and pretty much anything the hosts feel like talking about. Today, your regular hosts Colin and David are joined by a special guest.
Welcome to the SurfaceSmiths podcast.
So joining us remotely from Victoria, British Columbia is Joel Rushworth, fellow MVP, who's also a Microsoft Phone MVP. Welcome to Surface Nation, Joel.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Joel, we have a part of the show called Word of the Week. Our listeners have turned the show into a drinking game that tells you a little bit about our listeners. And as you're our guest, you get the honor of choosing the Word of the Week.
Well, as a Windows Phone MVP, I think I'm going to have to go with McLaren.
McLaren. All right. So we'll have to try to work that into the show a bit. If you had gone with McLaren, that would have been a lot easier for me to insert into the show, but we'll go with McLaren as the word of the week. So Surface Nation, when you hear the word McLaren, take a sip of your favorite drink. So Joel, you and I first met probably remotely on one of the MVP calls, but we met in person last November in Bellevue.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That was a lot of fun. We talked about that show. We talked about MVP days. A lot has happened since then. Microsoft has announced lots of new hardware, and you're on the show this week to talk to us about why you're sticking with Microsoft for phone, or why you're sticking with the Windows Phone. Both David and I have moved on to other devices. We both own Windows well, but our go-to devices are no longer Windows phones. Yours still is.
Yep, absolutely.
Care to tell us why that is, and if there's any interesting new news from Microsoft on the phone front? We've got a few tidbits we want to discuss with you, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
I got interested in Windows Phone about 5 years ago when they were bringing out Windows 8 in build, and Steve Ballmer was up on stage, and he was talking about this idea of having all of your information seamlessly move between all of your devices, and I was hooked. And I've been on this journey for the 5 years and learning new things and watching the experience evolve. And I'm really happy with where it's come from and where it's going. And I think it's just getting more and more compelling for me anyway, for my use case. And I really like it. I went to school for photography many, many moons ago, and I've always had a strong interest in it. And the Windows phones, the Lumias in particular, are just so good. I would have a hard time moving to something else just based on that alone.
Well, I know I love the build quality of the Lumias. I miss the great hardware, amazing cameras. I miss a lot of that. But for me, it was really about the utilitarian nature of the phone being able to service my needs outside of being a nice piece of engineering. For me, it was being able to have a banking app that worked, my bank, or being able to
worked, as well as have features like deposit.
Exactly. When I was out west, I broke my phone. I've talked about that many times, and I couldn't get it fixed anywhere. And with Apple Care, I can. I'm not a huge fan of the iPhone itself, although the app ecosystem is fairly solid, but I am a big fan of Apple Care. I'm hoping it'll take good care of me.
Let's find out.
Not today. So why are you sticking with it? What do you know that we don't know? What's coming down the pipe?
Well, there was, I guess, fortuitous timing. Windows Central posted a leaked memo today from Terry that basically he flat out says we're committed for the long haul to Windows Phone and Windows on mobile, and there's new hardware coming both from OEMs and from us.
So we talked about that in the last episode. We talked about the new Acer Continuum phone, Jade Primo, I believe.
Yeah.
Jade Primo.
And David's hijacked that Twitter handle, so he can tweet as Jade Primo.
Although no one's noticed.
Right.
I think that says something about their interest.
I think the only people following Jade Primo think she's an adult entertainer.
It's possible, yes.
Somebody noticed that Windows 10 now supports 30, which is a very, very high-powered processor. And why would Microsoft be testing on that if they weren't planning on introducing a device using that? So
Absolutely. Or them or one of their OEMs. I mean, do we know the HP Elite X3, is that going to have a 20 or an 830? Because, I mean, they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink into that phone.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for the Atom processors with LTE baked in to the chipset. And that's
Really?
when I think it gets exciting.
Are there any there?
Yeah.
Intel has announced them for this year.
Okay.
So I would imagine that, so I'm trying not to violate any NDA here, but I would imagine that, Microsoft is in some ways on a schedule that's tightly linked to their supply chain, as they were for the new Surface Book and the Surface Pro 4. They were waiting for the chipset to be available.
And Microsoft doesn't have things the way we think they are. Like, I have a Windows 8 tablet, 8 inches, or Windows 10 tablet, 8 inches. It's kind of a rough experience. If you had a Windows mobile phone that's really a tablet at 8 inches, it would be a much smoother experience. I mean, there's so many possibilities for Microsoft there.
I'm gonna be a bit of a contrast, because I know everybody keeps saying Win32, and it got to have an Atom processor, and especially looking at how difficult a time Microsoft has had with the new Skylake processors and being first out of the gate, and how slow Intel has been at getting those issues fixed.
Right.
Do you really want an Atom-powered mobile device?
Well, it would cost more.
But battery life, reliability, I mean, they just don't have, they have even less of a track record on phone-sized devices than they did with something like Skylake.
And that might work well on a tablet.
It might, but I guess
on a phone,
I guess what I'm saying, and the thing that I keep scratching my head about, and this is nation, and I'm just throwing this out there to give us something to talk about. But everybody keeps saying Win32, Atom-powered Surface phone, right?
Well, they do, but then when you start like delving into it and having discussions like we're having now, you start coming into these questions, don't you? You start coming in, well, it's not even release experience that Microsoft had with the Surface Book and Surface 4. I think you're onto, and would people really want it?
Here's the next logical thing that comes to my head when I think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody keeps saying Atom phone, because they think that that's the only way that they can get Win32 apps to run on a phone.
Oh.
And I'm saying the ARM-powered processors have a much better track record. They're getting more and more powerful. Their battery consumption, which is the most important. So what if Centennial went the extra mile?
So you're talking about the Centennial Bridge, which ports apps from iOS to...
No. Centennial brings Win32 apps into the store.
It does.
Right? So that they can run in a sandbox. But they only run on Win32 machines.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
What if it really converted them to...
Well, it doesn't have to convert them. What if there was some way of doing virtualization or something similar on an ARM chip, maybe with containers, aka Docker?
I think it would be hard for me to say that Microsoft isn't really that good at hardware, because here we have some really good hardware, the Surfaces, but they probably are better at software. And if they can fix it in software through some sort of virtualization, containering, maybe that would be a better way to go.
So let's switch gears here. We've gone all over the place, but
and Colin's been writing on the board.
Colin is going to try and rein this conversation in.
Well, we do want to keep a short podcast. We're looking at no more than 30 minutes, but so I'm going to throw a couple of things at you. One, my feeling is over the last few years, as Apple entered the mobile market, mobile phones have really changed from a technology decision for most people to a lifestyle decision. It's a brand that people wear, like Lacoste or Diesel or Prada. Luxury brands are around all the time, but lifestyle brands typically go in cycles, not because their quality changes. So I'll give you an example of Lacoste. Lacoste has continued to make high quality polo shirts and golf shirts. However, they were popular in the 80s, but in the 90s, because the people that were stylish didn't want to wear what their older brothers wore or their parents were wearing, so they chose something else to wear. And it goes in cycles. And guess what? Here we are 30 years later, and Lacoste is cool again.
Sure.
So Apple sort of poisoned the well by turning themselves into a lifestyle. That's why we saw the iOS backlash. That's why we saw that Apple had an announcement this week that they're expecting iOS shipments to decline and continue to decline for the next few quarters because people are moving to other phones. Android phones are far outselling iOS phones, and that's a standard product. It has nothing to do with the quality. Has everything to do with that was last year's cool thing.
And then from a technology point of view, they charge a premium, and there's other companies out there that make a very similar product.
Right.
It doesn't charge that premium.
So what I'm saying is at some point it becomes, Microsoft's turn, just purely because that's the way lifestyle stuff goes.
Microsoft is more cool now than it used to be.
That's true. I remember a couple of years ago when hush puppies were cool again. I never would have worn hush puppies. I still don't. But, something that my father wore in his 70s became cool with the... What's your thought on that, Joel?
I guess I'm not going to say whether or not Microsoft can be cool again. That is just, I guess to me, it's just a huge variable. But the one that when you're talking about things going in cycles, when I was skiing, and when snowboarding came out, I was just a little bit too old to be. That just wasn't something I was going to change to. Right. But that's where all the young, cool kids were doing. And now snowboarding's been around long enough that those guys that started out and their kids are adopting skiing because that's the cool thing that's different from what their parents do.
Well, both my kids ski. They don't want to snowboard. They actually have an active dislike of snowboarders because they tear up the hill.
Okay.
But that's my kids. Minor points for that.
Okay.
So another thing I'm going to throw at you, Joel. There was another article out this week that there's a developer, and I can't remember his code name. David, you can check that if you want. But he's on a lot of forums. He had developed a port using a rootkit for a Surface RT Windows Phone 8.1 to run on it, and now he's working on Windows Phone 10, and he fully believes he'll be able to do that in the very near term. What do you think?
Run on what?
On an RT. Because a Windows Phone is designed to run on
the article. He's exploiting one.
Yeah. So there's a lot of those out there. I've got two of them myself. I'm pretty excited. If that plays out, that'll be a pretty cool device. We can use that in the studio as a soundboard or to help with injecting sound effects into the podcast.
I'm sorry, did you miss my eye roll there?
It was.
You know what? I would love that. I think that would be amazing. If they could get it to run on the Nokia 2520, I'd go grab one of those things tomorrow. Because that was the only RT device that was powered with the Snapdragon 800.
Right. So that's pretty.
Love to have that.
Let's talk about things that could have been. So before Microsoft bought the Nokia handset unit, they were working on what was codenamed McLaren.
Yeah.
The would have also been the Lumia 1030 if it ever shipped. Lumia 1020 is still the most popular Windows Phone ever, the most recognizable. I don't know for sure. You might know better than I. But in its day, the most successful Windows Phone. I don't know if anything surpassed it since then.
Which one are you talking about?
The 1020. And
but success.
Yeah, when you're saying successful, I think maybe mind share
Mm-hmm.
or a passion for the enthusiasts.
Or the most kick-ass camera ever put on.
Yeah,
a phone.
I still miss that camera. So the
Absolutely.
McLaren would have been the 1030, which would have been the 50 megapixel camera and a bunch of photos of what that looked like. No, the 1030, David, not the 1050. And have you taken a look at those? What are your thoughts if that phone had ever shipped?
I've been drilling over those for years. I really have these that I absolutely loved, and I was all in on a 1030. I wanted that phone so badly, and I think hindsight being 2020,
Not 1020.
yeah, hindsight being 2020. You know, at the time when they canceled it, it was never confirmed that this thing was actually coming. But with all of the leaked images that we've seen of hardware, I don't think there's much debate that they were actually, actively working on this thing. But hindsight being 2020, I think the deletion of the 1030 is really the thing that took the wind out of the sails of Windows Phone growing.
Yeah, that's probably in history. When we look back in a few years, that'll be a turning point.
Or it happened to be at the turning point.
I remember how 20 said, "Oh, I want one of those. Look at the great pictures you're getting. I can't get anything close to that with my camera."
True, but I think that
if you think about it, like that is where the gap started of no flagships.
Yeah.
Yes.
For 2.5 years or however long it was.
Let's talk about flagships. So, what do you think of the new BOGO plan?
I think that that's a great deal, and when you're not paying spiffs to carriers, you're not beholden to carriers, with I guess the exception of maybe AT&T. You're getting dollars.
So let me. So if we're talking about carriers, let's play a clip for you, and then we'll talk about carriers. So before you play the clip, let me cue it up. So we've talked in the past about how we can't get things here in Canada. I tried to order it, things like that. We couldn't get our phone from the carriers, etc. So I got a little clip here. I asked Cortana to do some research for me, and here it is.
Hello, Mark. I'm Cortana. How can I help you today?
Good day, Cortana. I heard that you are find it in the App Store.
You can't get that in Canada.
What about the WordFlow keyboard for my iPhone?
You can't get that in Canada.
Okay then, can I switch from my iPhone to a Windows phone with my current carrier?
You can't get that in Canada.
What about maintaining data residence?
You can't get that in Canada.
What about the good Netflix?
You can't get that in Canada.
What about Nutter Butters?
You can't get that in Canada.
What can I get here then?
Would you like me to set a reminder to get some milk in bags and an appointment for free medical care?
So we're not able to get in Canada. Our carriers don't carry the phone. And so, at least from a Canadian perspective, the mind share for the Windows Phone is just zero.
Yep. It's certainly, it's interesting because I go on the radio once a month on a tech show for 2 hours. I get folks that discover Windows Phone however they do. And one of the main reasons that they discover Windows Phone, or they choose a Windows Phone, despite not being able to get it in carrier stores. So they like the idea of a consistent experience across all of their devices.
And Windows 10 certainly does have that, doesn't it?
For all of the things that I really loved about Windows Phone 8 and 8.1 that have gone away, user experience between a mobile device and your computer, right down to the settings.
Edge can crash on every device.
The same place between all your devices. To me, that is really compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's a promise that I hope comes to pass. I can't wait for. There's no reason that I wouldn't necessarily go back to Windows Phone. So let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked about a lot of different things. Why don't we get to know you a little bit better? So first off, as I said, you are a Windows Phone MVP. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I get on the radio once a month here in Victoria. Really fun experience. It's live, and people call in and ask for help with problems. And I'm now known as the Windows Phone guy. I got on the show because I was listening to it one day, and the host kept talking iPhone, Android, nothing about Windows. So I went down and met him at one of his sessions, and I was like, here's a Windows Phone. You need to try this out and see what it's like. And since then, I've sort of taken that loaning of Windows phones out to a whole new level. I'm somewhere over 100 people that they can try it and see what they think.
So I know you've been on the MS Mobile show.
Yep.
With Vernon and David. I think Kevin was on the show at that point as well. We've heard you there.
Yep. And the SMR podcast, I just got to give a plug for that one. It's one of my favorites.
Which one?
The SMR podcast.
Okay.
Review, but if you get a chance, check it out. It's a lot of fun.
We will. We like podcasts. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, do you know Atlee Hunter?
I'm sorry, Atlee Hunter?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's a fun guy.
He is. So we're looking at having. Can you tell us a little bit about the Phone MVP program and what's happening with that?
Well, I don't know how much I can really talk about it, other than
don't worry, we're not recording this.
Nobody listens, Joel. You're not breaking NDA.
Okay, the consumer MVPs are going to be
so
that was announced.
Yeah, that was announced. Mary Jo talked about it as well, and I knew about it in the fall. However, so I'm not sure what that's going to mean for me, because I'm a dual MVP. I'm a Surface MVP as well as what used to be called Configuration Manager, but that's changed names. So I'm in an interesting.
I wasn't going to say cutting you in half. You get to double dip, maybe.
Perhaps. So and it depends where Surface goes, because right now they've moved Surface specifically over to consumer, but they've got another thing called Windows and Devices for IT. So I'm not sure what's happened. July 1st, you'll no longer be an MVP. That's your renewal date. How many years have you been an MVP?
Just a year and a half.
Okay, so not a long time, but definitely a good time. And you'll be part of a new influencer program, whatever that happens to be, along with the Xbox.
Yep. It's, I can say I was really honored that they chose to make me an MVP. Not really sure what this new program is going to entail. I'm going to continue to do my thing, and if that does,
okay, well, I'm sure I'll see you one way or another, or be in touch, and David will as well. Let's find out a little bit more about you. You want to tell us? We've got our standard interview question, so why don't we go that route? Want to tell us about your first computer?
Sure. My first computer was one of the very first ever put out, and I think my parents paid like $1,000 for it. And I know that it was one of the very first Commodore 64s ever made, because the color of the box, the case, like the body of it, was different than everybody else's, and it didn't have the little rainbow flag logo on it.
Okay, so you sure it wasn't?
Did you keep it?
Are you sure it wasn't a knockoff?
No.
Did you keep it?
Okay.
No, I have no idea where it ended up.
All right. So aside from being an MVP, what is your current profession?
The official title is I'm a territory manager for a wholesale confectionery company.
Sweet.
But yes, that's exactly it. There's a lot of sweet in confectionery. So mostly I'm a candy man.
All right.
It's actually a pretty interesting job, because if you're going to do outside sales, you're selling over 5,000 different items, and it's constantly changing. It actually makes for a pretty interesting job.
All right. So do they give you a white van? You get to drive around full of candy and park in front of schools?
I do not actually deliver the candy, which I'm very happy.
A lot about different Windows phones. What's your go-to phone? What's your daily driver?
My current daily driver is a Lumia 950.
950, not the XL?
No, just the 950.
Any particular reason why not the XL?
Two reasons. I find for shooting pictures a bit nicer. Mm-hmm. And I also, like I said, I loan the phones out.
Right.
And I have a 640 XL, which gave me something at 5.7 inches. So if I was going to sit down with somebody and talk about, like what might be the one that they'd want to try, it would be, you can see what the size is like. Here's the flagship phone with the flagship camera and the higher density screen, but it's the smaller size. Better comparison.
Okay. So what's your go-to computer right now?
My go-to computer, well, I guess I should have a Surface Pro 1 since launch day in Canada.
Okay.
That I have just amazed at how well this device has stood up. I am not gentle going in and out of stores, pulling it out of my bag. I don't know how old that makes it now. 4.5 years? Is that right? 3.5 years?
Pretty close.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. It has stood the test of time and then some. I'm extremely impressed with it. So that's what I use for work. And then I've got a desktop PC that SSD waiting to put in it and placeholders to come for OneDrive. And then maybe it'll go to Windows 10 too.
Here's my new favorite question to get to know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite sandwich?
How about candy bar? I used to do that as part of an interview process.
But I want to know his favorite sandwich first. Candy bar after.
The Montreal smoked meat on rye, yeah.
Okay. And
my favorite candy bar is a Crispy Crunch bar.
Good call. I like it.
And one of the brands that you represent?
Well, 5,000. I sell like pretty much any mainstream candy that you want.
I'm from Montreal. I know my smoked meat fairly well.
I am not from Montreal. I do not know my smoked meat that well. Although I did once go up there to Montreal to the very famous place to get the smoked meat.
Schwartz?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gone downhill. Actually, one of my mom's best friends for them, and he's even told me that it's not doing as well as it used to since the family sold it.
Oh, bummer.
But there's lots of other good places. If you come to Montreal, if you ever go in there, let me know. I'll hook you up.
I was at Schwartz over Christmas, and it was pretty good.
Not as good as it used to be, and there's better options now. There's smoked meat Pete's. There's Jarry smoked meat. There's lots of options. So if you're going to Montreal, look me up. I'll hook you up, and I'll try. Maybe I'll even come and visit with you. So we're winding down. We're getting to the end of the episode. Let's talk a little bit about something other than in Windows 10 Anniversary Edition you're looking forward to.
Well, I've already got, because I'm on the fast ring, I've actually already got one of the things that I've been waiting for the longest, which is the ability to send and receive text messages.
Oh, yeah.
That I spent a week using Just Continue. When I did that, was how nice it was to not have to pick up my phone to send and receive text messages. And now that that's working properly between my Windows 10 PC and my phone, I really like that.
That's a feature that might bring me back to Windows Phone, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's going to happen on Android as well.
Not in Canada, but they'll support it.
No, actually,
we'll get Nutter Butters before that.
The getting the stuff that's released in the States on Android is really less of a big deal, right? Because you can region hop. To me, it's the iPhones that you can't region hop with.
Are you saying there's some unrealistic, arbitrary controls on an iPhone that don't exist on other platforms?
I may be implying that. That's possible.
Okay.
All right. So we're winding down now. So Tech Talk. Is it Tech Talk Victoria or just Tech Talk?
CFAX Tech Talk.
Okay. And what station is that on?
on CFAX, 1070 AM.
Okay.
Saturday mornings between 10 o'clock and noon.
Is it available as a podcast?
Easy because of the way that Bell Media handles it, but it is possible.
Okay.
I'll try to find a link for the show notes.
Right. So since you mentioned how you got on the show, I'm not sure if you listened to a show called Geeks and Beats.
I don't. I'm not familiar with
Yeah, so it's two fairly famous technology and pop culture.
Well, they don't. They talk about Apple.
They talk about Apple and they think they know technology, but they don't. Although Alan Cross is someone I'm quite fond of. He does a lot of history of new music and things like that. He's got some great documentary. And anyways, if you want to take a listen, maybe you can set them straight on Windows phones as well. So any other social media properties that you want to pimp?
Well, you can. I have a very crazy handle for the internet, and I can explain it. And GWYDIONJHR. And the first part, the Gwydion, is from Welsh mythology, and it was a character in a book that I read when I was a kid, and I used it for like Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of other things. And at some point, JHR on Instagram, I could get a username that nobody else could either pronounce or would take. So that
or whatever send an email to.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Use it at Gwydion J.
For a child.
Gwydion JHR Jr.?
Well, just Gwydion. I mean, I'm sure most.
Yeah.
No kids, but maybe if I get another fur baby, I could name it Gwydion.
All right.
Fur baby.
Thanks for being on the show, Joel.
Thanks for having me on.
We're just going to do us know how you enjoyed our time with Joel and the show in general. You can find us on Twitter at SurfaceSmiths.
You can find us on Facebook. We are SurfaceSmiths Podcast.
You can listen on the website or subscribe in your favorite podcast. Show notes and details about what we've spoken about. That's at www.surfacesmiths.com. You can also leave comments on episodes, as many of our listeners do.
And you can email us at podcast@surfacesmiths.com. That email goes to both of us. So if you're interested in joining, that's a great way.
Let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we're not doing well. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. And thank you, Joel, for being on the show. Good night, everybody. Keep your stick on the ice.
Good night, Surface Nation.
Night all.
Welcome to the Whiskey of the Week segment. We still have Joel on the line with us, all the way from Victoria. Our arms and our pouring abilities do not quite reach that far. So, Joel, you're going to have to pour your own drink.
I guess right now I'm going to be drinking a Lighthouse Beacon ESB, which is not a whiskey. I am sorry. Please forgive me.
Well, you're too far for me to do anything but that. But you know what'll take the sting?
There you go. We have two whiskeys, one for this week's show and one for last week's show.
So let's do this week's show first.
Okay.
So what have you got there, David? It looks like moonshine.
It does. It's Dylan's The White Rye.
When he gave us stuff to give away. But anyway,
well, next time we have a guest on, we'll search their name in the LCBO directory and see if anything comes up alcohol-wise.
Well, you know, Wayne Gretzky's got wine. Can we get Wayne Gretzky on the show?
Well, we can get his wine. It appealed to me because of its clearness.
Clearly.
I really have no idea what it tastes. It says it's brewed one small batch at a time, which could be
And you got
they
batch
don't-
19.
They don't sell a lot, I would think, but who knows?
All right, fake cork, rubberized cork.
There is a.
What are those vapors, that green vapors escaping from the top of that bottle?
It does smell like something that I.
So for those that listen to the show, they know what we're talking about when we say feet. Yes. Oh, it does have. It does have a alcohol smell to it.
So does that chair now. Sorry about that, but my lap.
When I spill longboard beer on my keyboard, so Joel,
Well, I had Microsoft compete on the first Surface Book I had, but not on the third one.
okay. Well, I had it on. I didn't have it on anything, and I spilled longboard beer on my keyboard. So we're going to tell you, Destiny, and it tastes like moonshine.
Wow, kind of a cardboardy.
Moonshine out of a box. So Joel, tell us about your beverage. Here,
I got something at the front door that seems to be getting his interest. But I'm going to do this,
well, good sound.
and let's see. Yep, it's beer.
But not
Well,
one I would order again.
let's go back to use some of the computer technical terms we use here. Okay.
All right.
So, what is the use case scenario for this? Word
Cleaning
is this is
paint
all-
brushes.
This is all there is in the cupboard, and you need a drink.
I'd still probably mix it. It's a mixer, not a sipper.
Okay, so it goes good with Kool-Aid.
Sure. Cleaning paintbrushes.
Okay.
Your favorites?
It is not.
No.
I typically like Highland whiskeys. I like some bourbons. I can't even describe this. There's no particular earthiness coming out. It's not fruity. It's not leathery.
Colin for me choosing this because before the podcast, I would only drink the Highland Scotches, and I would never think of getting bourbon or a rye whiskey or those sort of things. But we've had several very good whiskeys that aren't.
So, David, some of your favorite whiskeys from before the before time are not Highland.
Such as?
I think your Glenmorangie's not a Highland, is it?
Okay, maybe not a Highland Scotch, but a typical non-PD. I'm not liking them.
All right. So, Joel, I'm guessing you've had this beer before.
Actually, it's fairly new to me. ESBs, which stands for extra special bitters, are not all that easy to find. And I've had less than a 6-pack of these.
Okay.
So you just bought it today?
I'm wrong, David. It is a Highland.
Oh, okay.
So, and who's the brewery again?
Looking earlier about like Labatt's Blue and export and stuff. When I moved out here 20 years ago, I was an export drinker, and you couldn't even get export out west then. I think I've seen it once, maybe. I don't know. And I just haven't had anything from a mainstream brewery in 20 years.
Did you drink Kokanee? I like Kokanee and I'm out there. A lot of good Granville Island stuff too.
Yeah, Granville Island is good, but we're only a city of about 500,000 people. I mean, there's just every time you turn around, there's something new and interesting to try.
That's happening across Canada, across North America. I love it. And you're not coming out to MVP Open, but I have a surprise before that. So I had a friend of mine at a local company who's going to be sponsoring part of the event. He made a special MVP IPA in bottles.
Oh, I love IPA.
Nice.
So there's going to be special beer for MVPs.
Nice.
They're not far from here. So yeah, we've got a couple of dozen good microbreweries around here and another couple of dozen not so good microbreweries. There's actually one in the business park down the street.
And which category is it in?
It's not so good. It's called Nita, which is my boss's wife.
They can get better.
They can get better. So last notes tasting this. Do you know what this reminds me of?
Mm-hmm.
Cachaça Light.
Thank you for listening to the SurfaceSmiths podcast with Skip of the Week.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Care to say goodbye?
Oh,
And we'll stop the recording. So
thank you for all of your information seamlessly moved between all of your devices.
What do you know that we don't know? What's coming?
Do you really want an atom-powered mobile